Welcome back. You have found your way to another dark corner of Skyrim. Another confession that probably should have stayed buried. This is the story of what it means to be a Thalmor Justiciar, the ones who enforce the ban on Talos worship, the ones who drag people from their homes in the night. You have seen us on the roads, maybe even fought us, but have you ever wondered what it takes to become one of us? What kind of indoctrination turns an Altmer child into someone who can torture without flinching? What it feels like to know an entire province wants you dead? What happens inside Northwatch Keep that nobody talks about? What we are really trying to accomplish beyond just enforcing a treaty? This is that story, the brutal truth of a life spent hunting heretics, justified by a plan to unmake reality itself, all while drowning in doubt that any of it means anything. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest. I believed it all. Every word they taught us in Alinor, every prayer, every justification. I was 6 years old when they first showed me the chart. The bloodline chart. My instructor traced her finger down the golden lines. She showed me how my family descended directly from the Aldmer, how our blood carried fragments of divinity. She told me we were not simply better than men. We were proof that the gods once walked among mortals. And men, she said, were the reason we could never return. You have to picture Summerset to understand. The towers rise so high they seem to touch Etherius itself. Every street is perfectly clean, every garden precisely maintained. Altmer children learn magic before they learn to write. We memorize genealogies the way you memorize nursery rhymes. By the time I was 10, I could recite my lineage back 14 generations without pause. They called it education. I call it something else now. The instructors never raised their voices. They never needed to. They simply explained over and over that we were the last guardians of a broken world, that the Oblivion Crisis proved the Empire could not protect Tamriel, that the Crystal Tower fell because men had weakened the very fabric of reality with their fumbling attempts at civilization. They taught us that Talos was not just a false god. He was an infection, a cancer growing in the mythic structure of existence itself. I was 17 when I entered Justiciar training. They tested us for 3 months before accepting anyone. Physical endurance, magical aptitude, but most importantly, ideological purity. One girl in my cohort made a joke about a Bosmer merchant. She implied he might be clever. She was gone the next morning. We never asked what happened to her. Training took 4 years. We learned to fight, yes. We learned spells that could shatter bone and boil blood from the inside. But the real education was different. They taught us to recognize doubt, to cut it out of ourselves like a tumor, to see hesitation as weakness, to understand that every Nord we arrested, every shrine we destroyed, every prisoner we dragged to Northwatch Keep was not cruelty, it was surgery. We were cutting out diseased flesh so the body of Tamriel could heal. I remember my first patrol in Skyrim. The cold hit me like a physical blow. We Altmer are not built for this frozen wasteland, but my commander told me to see it as a test. If we could endure this barbaric land, if we could bring order to these savage Nords, then we could bring order to anything. The first Talos worshipper we caught was an old man. He had a small shrine in his cellar, just a worn amulet and some burnt offerings. He cried when we found it. He begged us to understand. He said Talos had watched over his family for 3 generations. He said his grandfather fought at the Battle of Red Ring. He said we were monsters. I hit him, not because I was angry, because that is what you do. You show them there are consequences. You teach them that their beliefs have a price. My commander nodded approval. The old man's son tried to intervene. We arrested him too. That night, I wrote in my journal that I had performed my duty with honor, that I had taken another step toward purifying Skyrim, that the Empire's weakness in allowing Talos worship had created this mess, and we Thalmor were the only ones with the spine to fix it. I believed every word I wrote. You need to understand the daily reality of being a Justiciar in Skyrim. Every Nord you pass on the road looks at you with hatred. The children throw stones when they think you are not watching. The Jarls smile to your face and spit when you leave. The Imperial soldiers resent having to support you. You are alone in a land that wants you dead. So you cling to your brothers and sisters in the Thalmor. You recite the teachings. You remind yourself why you are here. You attend the meetings where your superiors explain the grand plan. How banning Talos worship is just the beginning. How we are working to erase him from the mythic itself. How once Talos is gone, the other towers can be addressed. How reality can be unmade and remade properly this time. They never said it plainly to us lower ranks. But we understood. We were not just enforcing a treaty, we were preparing the ground for something far greater. The return to divinity, the undoing of Lorcan's trick, the restoration of what was stolen from us. It made the work bearable. When you are dragging a sobbing Nord woman from her home because someone reported her wearing a Talos amulet, you tell yourself it is for a purpose beyond her understanding. You are saving her from clinging to a lie. You are helping to heal all of creation. The patrols were the worst. Just walking the roads of Skyrim with 2 or 3 other justiciars looking for violations. We had authority under the White-Gold Concordat to stop anyone, question anyone, search anyone. Most travelers knew to keep their mouths shut. They would answer our questions with yes and no. They would show us their belongings. They would move along, but there were always a few who could not help themselves. The ones who said they worshipped Talos. The ones who told us the Concordat was a betrayal. The ones who said we had no right to be in Skyrim. Those ones came with us, back to Northwatch Keep. I have walked that road to Northwatch more times than I can count. It sits on the northern coast, northwest of Solitude. The locals avoid it. Even the animals seem to know something is wrong there. The place has a weight to it, a smell you can never quite wash off your robes. The first time I entered the interrogation chamber, I vomited. My commander said that was normal, that I would get used to it. He was right. After a month, I could eat my evening meal in the next room while Rulindil worked on a prisoner. After 6 months, I could watch without flinching. After a year, I could assist. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would like to know if I'm the only one who feels this way. They call it interrogation. That is the polite word, the clinical word. But you have seen the room. If you have ever fought your way into Northwatch, you have seen the racks, the heated irons, the tools whose purposes I will not describe. You have seen the cells where we keep them afterward, if there is an afterward. Rulindil was an artist. That is what the other justiciars said. He could keep someone alive and talking for weeks. He knew exactly how much pain a body could endure before the mind broke. He knew which questions to ask when. He knew how to make them believe cooperation would end the suffering, even though it never did. I assisted Rulindil 43 times. I kept count in the beginning, though I am not sure why. Maybe I thought the number would mean something. Maybe I hoped there would be an end to it. There never was. The prisoners came in many forms. Most were simple farmers, people who kept a small shrine hidden away, people who whispered prayers to Talos when they thought no one could hear. But we always heard, the Thalmor have informants everywhere. The Empire needs our gold, so the Jarls cooperate. The battle-hungry Nords resent each other enough that they inform on their neighbors. Jealousy, revenge, fear. All of it feeds us information. Some prisoners were Stormcloak soldiers. Those ones had fire in them. They would spit at you, call you elf, scream about Skyrim belonging to the Nords. Rulindil enjoyed those ones most. He said breaking a strong will was more satisfying than breaking a weak one. He was not wrong. When a Stormcloak finally begged, when tears ran down a face that had been full of defiance, you felt something. Power maybe, or proof that we were right, that their conviction was just noise, and underneath they were as weak as any other man. But the ones that stayed with me were different. The ones who never broke, the old woman who prayed to Talos even as Rulindil burned her, the young man who sang Nord songs until his voice gave out, the soldier who looked Rulindil in the eye and said, "I die for something. What do you live for?" I told myself they were fanatics, that their devotion to a false god made them dangerous, that the pain they endured was necessary to extract information about other Talos worshippers, other shrines, other cells of resistance. But after a while, I noticed something. We rarely learned anything useful. Most of them knew nothing beyond their own small worship. They had no grand conspiracy, no hidden network, just faith. And we tortured them anyway, because that is what we do, because the treaty gives us that right, because showing mercy would be showing weakness, and we could not afford weakness in a province that wanted us dead. Living in Skyrim as a Thalmor Justiciar means living with the certainty that you will die violently. The Stormcloaks want you dead. The common Nords want you dead. Even the Imperials who smile and cooperate would probably cheer if they found your body on the road. You sleep with wards on your door. You check your food for poison. You trust no one outside your fellow Justiciars. I watched 3 of my cohort die in 2 years. One was killed by Stormcloaks during a patrol. They ambushed us near a Talos shrine. We fought back, killed most of them. But Malian took an axe to the chest. He bled out before we could get him to the embassy. The second was poisoned in Markarth. Someone bribed a servant. Thalrian died choking, his skin turning purple. The third simply disappeared. Elenwen sent search parties. We found her robes by the roadside. No body, no evidence, just gone. After each death, we would hold a small ceremony at the embassy. Elenwen would remind us that they died in service to the Dominion, that their sacrifice brought us closer to our goals, that we could not let fear weaken our resolve. Then we would return to the roads, return to the patrols, return to Northwatch, and continue the work. The paranoia changes you. You start seeing threats everywhere. A merchant who looks at you too long. A child who runs away when you approach. A door that opens just as you pass. Every shadow might hide a knife. Every meal might be your last. You learn to sleep lightly, to wake at the smallest sound, to always know where your weapon is. Some justiciars broke under the pressure. They would start drinking too much, or they would become excessively violent, beating prisoners beyond what was tactically useful, or they would freeze during patrols, unable to make decisions. Those ones were quietly reassigned, sent back to Alinor, or given administrative duties at the embassy. The Thalmor do not tolerate weakness. I prided myself on being strong, on never showing doubt, on executing my orders with precision. When we discovered a hidden Talos shrine, I was the one who burned it. When we arrested a family for harboring a stormcloak, I was the one who separated the children from the parents. When prisoners begged for mercy, I was the one who looked through them as if they were not there. My superiors noticed. Ondalima commended my dedication. Elenwen mentioned me in a report to Alinor. I was promoted, given command of my own patrol, allowed to sit in on the strategic meetings where we discussed the larger mission. That is when I learned the truth. Not the truth we told the lower-ranked justiciars. The real truth. The ban on Talos worship is not about the treaty. It is not about punishing the Empire. It is not even really about erasing a false god. Those are all side benefits. The real purpose is mythic surgery. Talos strengthens the barriers that keep us trapped in this mortal prison. His existence as a god born from man proves that Lorcan's trick can be repeated. That mortality might be permanent, that we might never escape. If we can erase Talos from existence, if we can remove him from the mythic structure itself, we weaken one of the towers that holds reality in place. And if we weaken enough towers, if we undo enough of the architecture that keeps Mundus stable, then maybe we can return. Maybe we can become what we were meant to be. Not these diminished mortal forms, but the spirits we were before creation. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. The other justiciars in that meeting nodded along. They accepted it without question. We were chosen for a sacred mission. We were the instruments of our people's salvation. Every torture, every arrest, every dead Nord was a step toward undoing the greatest crime in history. The crime of creation itself, I nodded too. I said the right words, but something had shifted. Because I had seen the look in that soldier's eyes when he asked what I lived for, and I realized I did not have an answer. Not a real one. I lived for orders, for doctrine, for the promise that if I did terrible things long enough, if I believed hard enough, if I never questioned, then someday reality would break and I would become something better than what I was. But what if it did not work? What if we erased Talos and nothing happened? What if we tore down every tower and Mundus simply ended, taking us with it? What if the entire purpose of my life, every prisoner I tortured, every life I ruined, was based on a theory, a hope, a desperate prayer to gods who abandoned us long ago? If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I will be reading them. I push the thoughts away. Doubt is weakness. Doubt is failure. Doubt means I am not strong enough for this work. So I returned to my duties. I led my patrols. I brought prisoners to Northwatch. I watched Rulindil work, and I tried not to think about the soldier's question. The turning point came on a patrol south of Windhelm. We stopped a cart. Standard procedure. The driver was a Nord woman, maybe 30 years old. She had 2 children with her, a boy and a girl. They looked at us with those wide Nord eyes, blue as winter ice, trying to be brave. We searched the cart. Found nothing at first. My partner Sanyan was about to let them go, but I saw the way the woman's hand moved to her neck, a nervous gesture, protective. I told her to show me what was under her collar. She hesitated. That was enough. I pulled it out myself. A small amulet of Talos, worn smooth from years of handling. Her grandmother's, she said. A family heirloom. She was not worshipping, she claimed, just carrying a memory. The law makes no distinction between worship and possession. I told her she was under arrest. The children started crying. The boy, maybe 8 years old, grabbed my robe. begged me not to take his mother, said they had no one else. Their father died in the war. I should have pushed him away. I should have bound the woman and brought her to Northwatch. That is what a good justiciar does. That is what I had done dozens of times before. But something stopped me. I looked at this child clinging to my robe, and I saw every child I had separated from their parents. Every family I had destroyed. Every life I had ruined in service to a plan I was not even certain would work. Sanyon was watching me, testing me, waiting to see if I would show weakness, if I would fail this moment. The woman was silent now, just staring at me, not begging, not fighting, just waiting to see what I would choose. I told her to go. I said the amulet was old enough to qualify as a historical artifact, not worship, just heritage. I let them pass. Sanyon reported me the moment we returned to the embassy. Of course he did. Mercy is failure. Hesitation is corruption. Doubt is disease. He had been trained just as I had been trained. He was doing his duty. Elenwen questioned me for 6 hours. She wanted to know if I had been compromised, if I had been turned by Stormcloak agents, if I had lost my faith in the mission. I told her no. I told her I made a tactical judgment, that the woman was nobody, that arresting her would have created more resentment than it was worth, that we needed to choose our targets carefully. She did not believe me, but she could not prove anything either. I was too valuable, too skilled, too accomplished. So she assigned me to Northwatch permanently. No more patrols, no more roads, just the keep, just the interrogations, just the torture chambers where the doubts in my head could be drowned out by screaming. Rulendil was pleased to have the help. He had been working alone too long. There were always more prisoners than he could handle, always more heretics to break, always more confessions to extract. I spent 3 months in that place, barely seeing sunlight, barely leaving the blood-stained rooms. You learn things about yourself in a place like Northwatch. You learn what you are capable of, what you can endure, what you can do to another person and still look at yourself afterward. I thought I knew. I thought 4 years as a justiciar had already shown me the depths. But Northwatch is different. In Northwatch, there are no witnesses, no public, no pretense, just you and the prisoner, and the tools, and the certainty that no one will ever know what happens in these rooms. Rulendil taught me techniques I had only heard rumors about, ways to hurt someone without leaving permanent marks, ways to make the mind break before the body does, ways to keep someone alive when they should have died. He was proud of his work. He called it art. He said we were the finest interrogators in the Dominion, that Alinor itself would hear of our accomplishments. I became good at it, better than I wanted to be. I could make anyone talk, anyone confess, anyone betray their friends, their family, their gods. I stopped keeping count, stopped learning their names. They were just bodies, just obstacles, just problems to solve with pain until they gave us what we needed. And then one day, Rulendil brought in a prisoner who looked familiar. It took me a moment to place him. Then I realized it was the son from the cart, the 8-year-old boy who had grabbed my robe and begged me not to take his mother. He was older now, maybe 14, but I recognized his eyes. Rulendil said he had been caught at a secret Talos shrine near Windhelm, part of a group of young Stormcloak sympathizers. Dangerous, Rulendil said. These young ones are full of fire. They need to be taught before they become real threats. The boy recognized me too. I saw it in his face. The moment he understood that I was one of the elves from the cart, the one who had let his mother go, he looked at me like I might show mercy again, like maybe I was different from the others, like maybe there was still something human in me. Rulendil ordered me to begin the interrogation. Standard procedure. I had done this 100 times, 1,000 times. It should have been easy, but my hands were shaking. The boy kept looking at me, waiting, hoping, believing. I did it anyway, because that is what I was trained to do, because showing mercy once had only delayed this moment, because the boy's faith in me was misplaced, and it was kinder to break it quickly than to let him hope. Because I was a Thalmor Justiciar, and Thalmor Justiciars do not hesitate. He screamed for 3 hours before he told us the location of the shrine. He gave us names, addresses, everything we wanted, and then Rulendil killed him anyway, because he had seen too much, because mercy is weakness, because that is what we do. That night, I walked out of Northwatch Keep. I did not tell anyone. I just walked down to the shore, stood there in the freezing wind and looked at the dark water and thought about walking into it, about letting the cold take me, about ending this before I became something even worse than what I already was. I did not do it. Cowardice maybe, or habit, or the faint desperate hope that maybe if I kept going, kept following orders, kept believing, then eventually it would all mean something. That the boy's screams would be justified, that my hands would be clean, that the grand plan would work and we would ascend and none of this would matter anymore. But I knew the truth. I had known it since that meeting where they explained the towers, since the soldier asked what I lived for, since the moment I let that woman go and realized I was capable of mercy and chose not to be. We are not saving the world. We are not healing reality. We are not preparing for ascension. We are just broken people doing broken things because we were taught that our brokenness is divine, that our cruelty is righteousness, that our fear of mortality justifies any atrocity. The Thalmor do not want to unmake the world to return to godhood. They want to unmake it because if there is no world, there is no evidence of what we have become, no record of what we have done, no witnesses to testify that we were not saviors. We were just monsters who convinced ourselves we had a reason. I am still at Northwatch, still following orders, still breaking prisoners, because I do not know what else to do. Because leaving would mean admitting that everything I have done, everyone I have hurt, every life I have destroyed, was for nothing. And I am not strong enough to face that truth. So I stay, I endure, I serve, and I tell myself tomorrow will be the day I find the courage to stop. But tomorrow never comes.